and welcome. Welcome to Satsang. I'm glad you're here. This is the opportunity to consciously, purposefully, intentionally reconnect to the essence of our being, to the most divine truth of us that is always present because it is the truth of us, and yet is so often not acknowledged or abided or recognized or necessarily felt. And if you're in this practice, if you're in any sort of a practice of presence, being present to the moment, to yourself in the moment, you may start to recognize that in that presence there is always peace. The moment itself is peace. The activities of our life, as long as we don't die in the middle of the peace. And then, even then, of course. But that stillness of being, that stillness of being is the essential nature of our spirit. We are spiritual beings. Within a body, mind, and ego experience. And ego, again, is simply activity of mind. It's our thoughts about who we are. It's our stories about who we are. Because when we were young and babies, we never were told who we really are. Pure consciousness, the one consciousness, God's light of being. We typically weren't told that. And so we had this sense of, well, then who am I? And the mind wanted to answer that question. I need an identity. Here I am in this world of time and space and form, and I need an identity. I need to know who I am. And that one seems to be mom, and that one seems to be dad, and that one seems to be my brother or sister. We see all the others, and well, there must be a me then. And without the absolute truth of being, without knowing our absolute nature, our essential nature, our divine nature, we go about answering the question, who am I? And we get all manner of convoluted answers. I'm worthy, I'm unworthy, I'm lovable, I'm not lovable. Well, wait, I'm only lovable if I achieve, if I succeed, if I please others, etc., etc., etc. So here we are in satsang, the opportunity to stop and recognize our own being, our own isness. Beyond the stories, beyond the narratives, beyond the conditioning, beyond the programming, prior to the programming, prior to the conditioning, the essential nature of being. And if this is at all new to any of you, that's okay. When I first heard the words from my teachers, who are you really? Well, you are the essential nature of being. I had there was no place for that to land. There was no prior study or inquiry or direct experience through meditation or any other modalities. There was no resonance within me to what those words meant. And I take that back. There was probably some resonance because there I was pursuing these studies, pursuing something that was calling me, that was resonating with my soul. But the idea that there was a me other than who I felt myself to be and thought myself to be was just, that was kind of a wild concept. And I didn't get it. It didn't land in a sense of, oh yeah, I get that. I feel that. And now it's pretty much all I feel. So if this is new to you, stick with it. Hang in there. Awakening tends to take a while, 5 to 10 years of practice and patience and study and inquiry and staying in the conversations. But it's so worth it. It is so beautifully worth it. Because we can come to a place where we can have this full, rich human experience, and resting in the background of this experience is the peaceful awareness of being awake, present. So we don't get so lost in the content that we can play in the content and engage in the content, and at the same time recognize the content, the experiences are coming and going, arising and passing, appearing and disappearing within the presence of pure being, which is who we really are. So that's what we're here to play with. Couple of logistics. If you're in the Oasis community and you have connected through the link that was provided and you're connected with the Chrome browser, then you can chime in. You can tap a button there that says, I'd like to join the call, and I can bring you in and we can have a little side-by-side dialogue. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can chat. I'm not sure about Facebook. On YouTube, you can chat. You can just type in a chat and I'll typically see that at some point and can respond to those as well. So I want to start today, as we do often in Satsang, just to elucidate a bit more of the point that I've already brought up of the stillness of being that we are, to speak a little bit more to that and allow you just to feel for some resonance within you. And then we'll open it up with some questions and conversations. But feel free to type in a question if something that is said either lands deeply for you and you want to comment on it, or whether you hear something you go, oh, I think I'm so close to getting that, but I need a little help with getting there. Then you can chat in. So most of my life is spent contemplating the essence of my being, of the wholeness of being, the human spiritual being, the whole complexity of humanness and spirituality and source and consciousness and God and love and peace and stillness. And, it's so rich. Life is so much more than just the stuff we're doing and encountering and thinking. So it opens up a whole world and worlds and universes and planes of consciousness just keep opening up. And that's a beautiful, rich, nourishing exploration, endlessly fascinating. And in this contemplation and inquiry and thinking and studying with my own teachers, a little theme came up for today. And the theme was basically, here's what I wrote. How can you hear God if you won't shut up? Recognize when I speak to God, there's no religious context to this at all. It is simply, God is just another name for consciousness, for source, for oneness. You know, if you hear a Jamaican say, hey, one love, man, one love, that's God, one love, one love. How can we hear the one love and listen to its guidance and its truth and its grace and its beauty and its kindness and its compassion and its ability to hold space for everything without so much judgment and opinion and beliefs? It's so pure. How can we attend to that and abide that and listen to that and be guided by that when we won't shut the hell up? And by shut up, I mean this right here. So what is typically happening within our mind? When we take ourselves to be the individual personal self as the entirety of our being, what we tend to do is we tend to then see the world through the lens, through the perspective of our egoic identity, of our personal self only. We don't see the world through the lens of our wholeness, of our divine nature. We see the world through the lens of our small self, the small I. And typically the noise, and we don't often hear it as noise, it's just so habitual and normal. But when we really start to pay attention to what's going on, what we find is there's a almost constant narration about the world from the perspective of the egoic identity. And it's the small individuated sense of self, idea of self, beliefs of self, saying, what do I think about that? Oh, that just happened. What do I think about that? Is that a threat to me? Is it a value to me? Is that going to bring me love? Is that going to bring me happiness? Is that going to bring me pain? Is that going to bring me difficulty? Is that going to hurt me emotionally? Oh, what about that? What does that mean? What does that mean? What do I think about that? What does that mean? We are meaning-making machines. Nothing actually really has meaning except for the meaning we give it. So typically there is a constant narration from the egoic perspective, from the small personal individual I, that says, I am constantly scanning the world for a combination of threat and or can this be a source for my happiness? Can this be a source for my feeling loved? Can this be a source for me feeling worthy or valuable? And we realize we're outsourcing love and confidence and peace and stillness to the outside world, trying to get it to behave. How's that going? Right? How's that going? It doesn't behave. It doesn't stabilize. The only stable piece is the unwavering grace of our own being, God's being. That isn't so emotionally threatened by all of these things. And isn't chasing and clinging on to things, because without it, if this situation, condition goes away or changes, I no longer have love, or I no longer have happiness, or I no longer have peace. That's suffering. So, our mind is typically always narrating from the moment we open our eyes in the morning. Okay, what do I have to do? What's next? What's the best thing to do right now? What do I need to take care of? What do I need to attend to? So the practice that I am inviting here, that I employ in my own life now, kind of steadily now, is just always present, is the practice of slowing down the naming of things, slowing down the narration of what do I think about? What does that mean? Because when we answer what does that mean, we're just taking the condition, the data point in, and we're feeding it to our database of programming and conditioning. And it just goes into the database of ego. Says, well, I don't know, what have I learned? Oh, that's right, I had that experience when I was 5. This is somewhat similar. Oh, that one hurt when I was 5. This will probably hurt again. So we're constantly taking life in through the mind's perspective, and we're making meaning of everything. And it's not based on anything except for what we've learned in past and conditioning and programming. So there's a wonderful practice, and I invite you to practice it right now. With your eyes open. And this is a great practice to do when you come out of meditation. Come out of meditation. That's kind of a fun phrase. When you stop your formal sitting of meditation and you enter into your waking meditation, when you shift your meditation, your meditative stance or posture, here's a wonderful skill, tool, practice. Look around the world and play with not naming anything. Play with not needing to tell a story. Not having an opinion about something. Not entertaining a belief about something. Not holding a judgment about something. Not even naming it pleasant or unpleasant. I like it, I don't like it, I want more of it, I'd like it to go away. None of that. Just sit right now and look around your world and see if you can rest your attention, your interest, more within your stillness than within the appearance of the world that is always appearing within the stillness. Things are coming and going, appearing, disappearing, coming and going. Be more interested in the stillness of your own heart, in the peace of your own heart. Be more interested in that than you are in the assessment of the world around you. I actually find it's easier to do this with your eyes open. It's a wonderful practice. What if you weren't naming everything, assessing it, having an opinion about it? What if you could rest in your being and allow the world to come and go and appear and disappear? This is a practice you can do anytime you remember to do it. You could do it walking down the sidewalk. You could do it at the grocery store. At any moment, driving, you can just say, what if, oh wait, hold on. What if I stopped the constant, almost silent narration that's always going on? And was rested in stillness of mind. And what starts to happen is you start to feel peace, which is to say, you start to feel your truth. The wholeness of you, the spiritual nature, the divinity of you, God's being, a great stillness, a great peace, a great love, a great allowing, can be heard, not audibly, but it can be heard. It can blossom. It can be revealed because we're learning to quiet the chattery narration, constant narration, constant narration. When that quiets, it's like the concrete of a sidewalk falling apart so that a flower, a seedling, can blossom through the cracks and start to grow. The truth of our being can blossom when we quiet the mind. The little I, the personal I, is quite busy, constantly assessing the world and naming it and applying meaning based on nothing more than conditioning and programming and what it has learned. So here's another practice. First of all, before I get to that, let me bring it up here in my notes so I remember it. Any comments, questions around the practice of stillness and how within stillness truth can be known? The truth isn't within the heart. We know it through the heart. The heart is like a portal. When you open your consciousness, when you open the consciousness of who you really are, you're just opening a portal to the wholeness of your being, to the boundless nature of God's being, so that it can shine through. And recognize when the light of love shines through, you can think of yourself like a stained glass window. It's going to shine through your particular soul makeup. Isn't that beautiful? Think of every human being as a stained glass window. Different patterns, shapes, colors, textures. And most of them are dimmed. They're not the light of love, the light of God, the light of consciousness isn't clearly shining through. It is muddled. It is veiled by all the mind's stories and narrations. The truth of love is veiled. The light of love is dimmed by the constant storytelling of the mind. And as the mind quiets and that love can just shine through, we live more authentically. Because then we can participate in the world from our soul's desires, from our soul's inclinations, from that which we can attend to that which resonates with our own soul. And one soul, one stained glass window of being is going to want to live in the country and raise farm animals, and another soul is going to want to live in the city and build skyscrapers. Beautiful. And what if both could do so with such peace because they trust their own essence, their own inner voice, Khalil Gibran has a beautiful phrase that says, our work is our love made visible. Ideally, when we're not doing something simply because we think it'll get us loved or keep us safe, when we allow ourselves to really follow our own soul's resonance and love, that's our love made visible, our unique patterning made visible in the world. How can we hear our own soul and the purity of love that shines through every soul when we're so busy thinking and opinionating, and judging, wrestling with our own beliefs, often about self? To wrestle with our own mind is like trying to smooth the ripples on a pond with our hands. Why aren't the ripples going away? Why aren't they smoothing out? Why do they keep coming back? Stop. Be still. Let who you already are reveal itself. Let the essence of your being reveal itself. You don't need to keep making yourself up. You don't need to keep making up better stories and trying to get them to hold and stabilize. Any story of self generated by the mind is going to be subject to that very same mind's inclination and proclivity to constantly make things up and question. It'll have a positive thought about self, and then whether a second later or a minute later or a day later, it's questioning the very thought, the very belief that it is trying to hold on to. You will not find your truth in your mind. So, questions, thoughts, struggles. This is a whole different way of thinking and feeling and perceiving, and the ego doesn't like it. Here's something. Okay. From the ego perspective, from the mind perspective, if it isn't naming something, if it isn't interpreting a situation, then it feels like there's an emptiness. Because the mind doesn't yet typically know the essence of God, the essence of love, the essence of light that is the essence of everything. It is the oneness that shines through everything, of which everything is born. Everything comes and goes in and out of the isness, the beingness. We don't know that beingness as love, as quite not empty, as quite full. And since it feels empty, if we're not interpreting, narrating, naming, concluding, opinionating, believing, if we're not coloring the blank canvas of love, of awareness, of consciousness with our own interpretations, if we stop that, the mind freaks. It says, well, then nothing's happening. And if we allow it long enough, we find out that, oh my God, everything's happening. love is happening. So why do we constantly name things? Because we haven't typically awakened and opened to the ever presence of love in everything. And since we haven't awakened to that, typically, everything feels empty if we're not coloring it, naming it with our thoughts, our interpretations, our imagination. So I invite you right now to look around the room you're in and answer this question. Can you see the light in the room that you are in? Can you see the light? When I was first asked that question, I responded, of course, yes. And the teacher I was working with said, really? You can actually see the light itself. And pretty quickly, I realized, oh, no, unless there's something in the air for the light to reflect off of, some dust or incense smoke. Without that, I can't actually see the light. I only see what the light illuminates. And even when I think I'm seeing the light, because I see the rays of light coming through a window, I only see the rays of light because they're coming through some level of impurity, of smoke or haze or dust. And this analogy is to recognize, it helps us recognize just because we can't see the light doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So just because I can't see the love in everything, because that is the boundless, formless essence of being, of God's being, shining through everything. I can't see it. I can see the object. So I believe that the object is the entirety of its essence. More specifically, I believe that what I think and feel and say about the object is its essence. And it's not. If you put two people right next to each other and presented them with the exact same situation, both of them are having different experiences of it. Why is that? Because their experience is they're experiencing their own thoughts, beliefs, feelings, judgments, traumas, opinions, etc. That's what they're experiencing. And when we can quiet that long enough through these practices of practicing stillness, of practicing not naming, of practicing just being without needing to be doing and thinking and perceiving and acting. When we can be present to our own ego's panic and discomfort. We start to experience the love that's in everything. Because we're not clouding that with our opinions and our thoughts and our stories. But the mind says, without my stories, ain't nothing happening. And that's not true. People will sometimes ask, how would I live in this world if I'm not thinking about it all the time, if I'm not mentally engaging it and deciding and choosing and doing? And two things. One, the first answer is, I can't tell you exactly what it'll be for you, but I can tell you it'll be more authentic than the way you're living now. Because you won't be habitually just acting upon everything from your database, from your conditioning. You'll act from love. The love that is awakened and blossoms when the mind quiets. When the mind stops veiling the knowing of that love. Okay. So, how does this land for you? This way of perceiving or being or feeling that is not the norm, not the way most people are living. Most people are completely lost in their own mind's narration of everything and calling it real. Be more interested in the stillness of being than you are with everything arriving and going, appearing and disappearing within that stillness of being, of awareness. And let's be clear, we're not saying be only aware of the stillness, because then it legitimately brings up the question, well then, what about all this? What about my life? No, we're not saying don't have a life and don't have experiences. What we're saying is give yourself a break from it long enough to wake up who you truly are. Wake up the peace and the stability and the grace of love that you are, that I am, that we all are. Wake that up. Back off from all the narration long enough to wake up as who you really are. And then you can attend back into the world and have a full life with this knowing of pure being, of pure love, present, rested in the background of all experience. That takes a while. And you hear it all the time. Oh, I get so lost in the content of experience. Yeah, well then, wake yourself up again. Remember who you really are. Have that direct experience. And the more that awakens and blossoms and grows and reveals and is known, then we realize it doesn't have to go away. It doesn't have to be a back and forth. It can be a living in the world of form and responding to the world of form from an awakened peace, from an awakened love. It's not about denying our lives. It is about living our lives from an awakened truth of being. That's freedom. So, any chats to ask a question, to share a reflection? What happens when you sit with this? What happens when you sit in stillness? Do you notice your own mind racing, freaking out, interrupting? Good chance. Do you notice a sense of expansion, liberation, peace? Possibly that. What happens when you're consciously attentive to recognizing, oh, wow, when I quiet the mind, life appears differently because I'm not seeing it through the limited perspective of my conditioning. We can live life through our hearts, through this open portal of direct connection with our own divinity. That divinity then just shines in, and we live life as our divine truth. The mind relaxes. The mind says, oh, my opinions, they have no substance. They're just thoughts. And they cause a lot of problems. They cause a lot of problems. Notice when you're making up drama. Notice when you're making up worry, stress, fear. The question is often, who does the fear belong to? Whose fear is that? Is that your soul's fear? Is that God's fear? Is that the oneness that you are? The wholeness of your being is afraid? Or is it your story? Your belief, your false belief of who you think you are? It's afraid of being demeaned or thought badly of, or losing love, or being abandoned. Whose fear is that? And it's such a liberation to recognize, oh, that is a fear that is felt on behalf of a self that isn't real. Hey, there's a text. And Ali, I know you're part of the Oasis. If you're on the Chrome browser, Ali, you can also, there's a button there somewhere to say, I want to jump into the call. And if that's appealing to you, you can do that as well. Ali says, from the being point of view, in stillness, is there still decision to be made? I'll read the whole thing and then I'll come back and look at the parts of this. What if we need to make important decisions? How do we know the right one? Because any A or B decision seems to be based on certain expectation from particular perception, memory, ego, etc. Exactly. This is why I love satsang, because these are the questions. This is the typical question that is very normal and very important along the way. Thank you, Anthony. Anthony says, your session is really wonderful, sir. Blessings, my friend. Much love. We're all just walking each other home, right? And this is the invitation. That's all my soul wants to do. My work is my love made visible, and that love is to awaken myself in others. When I say myself, we're all the same one. It's just the awakening wants itself awake everywhere. So thank you. Much gratitude to you too. So Ali's question is wonderful. So yes, decisions need to be made, right? Of course. I live in the world of form, of time and space, or seeming time and space, of consequence. The invitation here is not to be so detached from life that you're not making any decisions about anything. Hey, if none of it matters, if I am just the oneness of being, and that is always at peace and that is always fine, then what does it really matter what the hell I do? Well, you're not just the oneness of being. You are the oneness of being having a soul experience through a human vehicle. You're all three. You're the oneness, individually expressed through a unique soul expression, traveling in this world of incarnation of time and space and form and matter as a human. So, what if decisions need to be made? And how do you know what is the right decision? Ali is a part of the member of the Oasis. There's a number of lessons you can look at around the art of contemplation. And I bring that up because how do we know what is the right answer? To slow down, to sit still, to journal, to allow a possible answer to present itself. And then walk around with that, feel into that, be with that, and then see if it changes tomorrow, an hour from now, and then explore that. See, we don't want to panic, right? We just want to be and listen. And when we're practiced in quieting the mind through these direct practices of coming out of a meditation and saying, all right, for the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to sit and be, and I'm not going to name anything. Or going for a walk and deciding I'm going to walk through nature and I'm going to look around and I'm not going to name anything. I'm not going to narrate anything. I'm not going to work on anything. I'm just going to practice being. So when we practice that, we are awakening, we are allowing our essence, our true wisdom to be known, to be present, to be accessible. So you contemplate, you feel into this decision or that decision, what feels more resonant. I'll give you an example. The villa I'm in currently right now, my lease ends in January. I have the opportunity to possibly stay here, but it's a bit complex in making that happen. There's negotiations and deals and contingencies and things to be worked out. Or I could move and find another villa that might be better than this one, that might have more of what I'm looking for in a villa. Although finding villas here in Bali is very difficult. And what if I find myself in January and I didn't negotiate staying here, but I also haven't found the new villa? What then? How do I make sure that doesn't happen? Whew. So I've been with this feeling of staying here or saying, nope, I'm not even going to try to stay here. I'm going to go find a new villa that has a different feeling that I'm kind of looking for. And Ali, I have been writing in my journal, clear as day, nope, moving. How would I feel if I stayed here? I'd feel a bit stuck. I'd feel a bit stale. I feel like there's more. There's another possibility. I'm not going to stay here. I'm definitely moving. I just have faith that I'm going to find the right place. And the next day, I'm feeling into it and going, wait a minute. I'm writing a book. I've got work to do. I've got my course that I'm launching and working with and modifying. And a lot of that wants to happen in January. And January moving? wait a minute. This is all right here. I got a good scene going here. Maybe the importance is on hunkering down into my work instead of trying to find the perfect villa for the perfect experience. Maybe it's really just staying put. Oh, that would feel really nice. Is it perfect? No, but it's really nice. It's a nice place. So I play. So I'm with it. I'm just being with it. But I'm practicing not panicking and not just allowing my fear base. What if I don't find another villa? Or what if I stay here and the construction of the building next door gets really loud? What if? I just sit and I listen to my own wisdom, to the collective wisdom. So important decisions are made. Give them time, give them space, and don't overthink them. Hold the choice, hold the question within your stillness. That's the best way I can put it. Hold your question within your stillness for days, weeks, months, whatever it takes. That's called listening deeply. We're not used to it, and the mind freaks. And it says, you're not, the mind that says, look, I'm the one who makes decisions. I'm the one who makes decisions based on my past, based on conditioning, based on my fears, based on my limited sense of self. That's the one who makes decisions to protect that limited self, to make sure that limited little personal self gets loved and validated and seen and acknowledged. And the mind is, the ego is typically choosing on behalf of what serves its own construct. The ego is making decisions not based on truth or wholeness. It's making decisions based on its very small, fragile egoic sense of self. I hope that's helpful. It takes a while, but you learn to just sit and be and journal and listen and allow until your answer tends to stabilize. For me, staying in this villa, that answer is starting to stabilize more. It's the same now as it was yesterday and the day before. The landlord's coming over today. We're going to have a discussion. And I'm feeling into staying here. And there's something in me saying, yes, that feels good, doesn't it? Is it perfect? No. Is it ideal? Maybe not. But it feels good. Yeah. All right. Yeah. What if I make the wrong decision? Who's asking that question? Well, then you'll be in a new situation. And the wholeness of being meets all situations. See, this is the freedom. When you know who you really are, you can be with anything. Now, we need to attend to our physicality. We need to attend to our physical safety. You know, if you're standing in the street and the bus is coming down the road, you don't contemplate. You take action to take care of the physical self. But what if you make a wrong decision? What if I make the wrong decision and I decide not to stay here and I don't pursue anything with the landlord, and I put myself in the position of needing to move, and then come January, I still haven't found a great place, and here I am, I've got to move, and I haven't found a place, and what then? I don't fear that. Even if it happens, I don't fear it. I'll meet that moment with love. I'll meet that moment from who I really am, from the wholeness of being. I'll do whatever needs to be done, knowing that I, the true I, is fine. I met a beggar on the streets of Kathmandu one time. He was on a little push cart because his legs were all withered, and he had his one leg draped over the other leg, and he pushed himself on the cart with his hands. And I was a photographer at the time, and I asked, hey, can I take your picture? And I was like, because I don't want to embarrass you. But I find, I find this fascinating, and I'm new to Nepal, and can I take your picture? And we had a little conversation with a friend of mine who spoke Nepalese, translated. And basically he was saying, why, he's asking you, why are you hesitant to take his picture? And I'm like, well, because I don't want to, make him feel bad. And his answer was, I know who, I'm God. I have God's light within me. You're the one tripping. So the ego is tripping over making the wrong decision. The sense of your personal self, you are more than that. You are vastly more than that. Yes, you live in this world and you don't want to die and you want to take care of yourself and feed yourself. But even if you were a beggar on the street, here's a good practice. Sit with this, sit in a meditation and ask, if I was a beggar on the street right now, could I be at peace? Whew. What liberation if you could say, yeah, it would be less than desirable, but yeah, wow. Who are you really? Who are you really? Yeah. All right, more questions here. Need practice to let go of the fear and the limited little self. Yeah, so the practice is to inquire, who are you really? What is the nature of the limited self? And Ali, you have access to my course. You have access within, as an Oasis member, you get a significant discount on my course. Living beyond the noise. It takes you through all of the questions. It takes you through the entire journey from, all I know is something's not right, and I'm tired of feeling anxious, and I'm tired of feeling afraid, I'm tired of feeling small, I think there's more, I want to be free. It takes you from that, but I don't know what's going on or how to practice. It takes you through all the practices and the meditations and the possibilities and the perspectives. Yeah. So need more practice. Yeah, you do. You do. So what do you practice? You practice sitting in your being. You study. Because when I say practice sitting in your being, one might say, what the hell does that mean? What? Well, study. Review the videos, review the lessons, review the teachings. Come out of a study, come out of watching a video, a teaching, and then go sit, contemplate, marinate, feel into. Yeah. There's another message here. Yeah, beautiful. My friends, the illusion of separation is the cause of all suffering. The illusion that you are only this separate, fragile, personal self. That's a scary thing. And then that very same fragile, scared ego self is asking the questions. What if I make the wrong decision? What if? And I got to figure out, and I don't have time for stillness. I don't have time to practice my wholeness. I've tried to manage making sure that the little I, am taken care of. And as soon as I'm taken care of and I've got everything managed, then maybe I'll have some time and for practice. We got it all upside down. We got it all backwards. The world won't stabilize. Our thoughts won't necessarily stabilize. Our story of self takes a long while to calm down, to stop trying to present itself and insist upon itself. But we got to come to recognize who we're not. You're not your thoughts. You're not your beliefs, your judgments, your opinions, your conditioning, your programming, your fears, your doubts. They're present. There they are. No, we can't deny their presence, but they do not actually represent who you are. They represent your egoic identity. And ego is not a thing. It's activity of mind. You are not your construct of self that you have constructed in your mind. You're just not. And once we get really clear on that, it starts to become easier to not listen to it, not believe it so much, because we come to a point where we go, well, this is just insanity. Why in the world would I continue to live my life based on the opinions, beliefs, judgments, and fears of a construct, of a made-up self? Based on what I learned from mom, dad, society, media, school, culture, etc. This is the matrix stuff, right? This is waking up from the matrix. It's waking up from the illusions of what it is, what we need to do to be loved, to be acceptable, to feel okay. We're outsourcing love and giving the responsibility for our sense of love to a world that is not stable. Krishnamurti had a wonderful phrase. He said, "It is no measure of one's well-being to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society. It is no measure of one's well-being to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society." If we place our sense of worthiness and love on the opinions and judgments and beliefs and attentions of a world that is deeply asleep in the egoic realm, we're screwed. Ultimate freedom is to source true love from the truth of our own being, the essence of being that is typically veiled by all of our stories and thoughts and beliefs and fears. So we want to keep asking, on whose behalf is this fear arising? Who's freaking out? Another question is, what would love do? Not what would the loving thing be to do. That is our attempt at being loving. That is our thought about what is the loving thing to do. And that's typically conditional love. I can love this, but not that, definitely not that, kind of love that. Oh, I really struggle to love that. But what would God's love, what would source, which is love, what would pure allowing do in this moment? If the little me wasn't freaking out, what would the wholeness of me, the truth of me, the boundless nature of the light of love of me do? It probably wouldn't panic. It probably wouldn't freak. It would probably allow some stillness to be with what is arising, what is appearing. True allowing is not an activity of mind. It is the very nature of our being. The purest essence of our being is allowing. It's not clouded by all of our fears and conditions and conditioning and programming of the egoic self. All right, friends. Let's see, 9 o'clock. We started at 8. Oh, we got some more time. Good. So any other questions? I mean, like Ali's question was perfect. But I got to make decisions in life. Yeah, just back off of making them from your egoic personal filter, lens, and practice stillness for a while and listen deeply and allow an answer to shape itself over a period of time. And listen to the who's freaking out and ask, is that the freak out, is that who on whose behalf is that happening? Is that really who I am? Or is that just my conditioned mind saying, ah? And just notice all of our distractions. Where are we going? What are we trying to get to? What we're seeking is not ahead of us. It's not something we're going to go get. We're all seeking generally the same thing, which is a feeling of happiness, a feeling of love, a feeling of peace, an experience of peace and love and happiness. And when we haven't learned to sit long enough to recognize, oh, that preciousness is already present. Unwavering, unmoving, always present. We realize we're moving in the wrong direction. Stop, fall back into the light of your own being. If I asked you to stand up and then take a step toward yourself, where would you go? I want to offer another analogy here. Again, if you're in the oasis, you'll notice, you'll see there's a lesson, a quick inspiration around this. And in this analogy, to recognize your light, to recognize what's behind you. We're all seeking and finding and getting and going and making and doing. And if we were to stop, the ego says, oh shit, no, keep doing. You haven't gotten it yet. You haven't gotten there yet. You haven't gotten it yet. We're not there yet. But when we just stop and we fall back, we find that everything we're seeking is the very essence of what we already are. So in this analogy, imagine a room, a circular room. and it's lined with doors. And all these doors are facing into the room. And we can consider this room to be the world we live in, okay? The world of form, others, situations, conditions, relationships, experiences. And all these doors are all faced into this room, and they're all paying attention to what's going on in the room. And each door looks across this room, looks across the world, looks across this space, and sees other doors, and notices that they all look different. That one's red, that one's blue, that one's adorned with gems, stones, and rocks, and that one's kind of set in an industrial metal frame, and that one's more modern, and that one's got feathers, and that one's pink, and that one's a whole bunch of colors. All the doors look different. The frames that they're in look different. The doors look different. And all these doors are facing inward, and they're not paying attention to what's behind them. And imagine that one of these doors opens, and that's called awakening. One of these doors allows itself to open to something more than just its doorness and the world it's facing into. It says, wait, what's trying to shine through this door? And it opens, and a light comes streaming through, and it illuminates the room a little bit. Some light gets into this darkness, into the room. And that one door in this awakening recognizes, oh, wow. When I open the heart, when I quiet the mind and open the heart, love is there. There's just a boundlessness of loving consciousness waiting to stream through. And it does. And then this door looks across and it sees another door that, again, looks different than itself. It sees individuality. But it starts to recognize, wait a minute, if that's the light that's behind me, and this analogy in our circular room with all these doors facing into the room, what's behind each one of these doors? It's the same light. And that door over there opens, and the light comes streaming through. And you realize it's the same light. It's not a light individuated to that door, and the door next to it opens, and it's a different light coming through. It's the same light coming through every single open heart. And so you can imagine in your meditation sitting and opening the heart and saying, when I quiet the mind and stop trying to work everything out, and I just come to rest, perhaps if I start to feel some peace or some grace or some stillness, that's like the door opening and the light of who you really are starting to shine through. And now imagine that each of these doors is actually a stained glass window with its own unique colors and shapes, and patterns. And behind each door, there's a veil that's keeping that door from knowing its own light. So here's the room, and the door is opening into the room, and behind the stained glass door, there's a veil, or a series of veils. And as those veils of illusion get peeled back, the light comes streaming through this unique stained glass door and shines into the world with a beautiful pattern, with a unique coloring and patterning and shape. And what if all these stained glass doors and all their unique frames started to remove the veils and allow that one same light to move through? They could live in the world and know their own light. They could live in the world and know their own light. And you could look across and see another door and say, that door looks completely different than mine, but the light moving through it is the same. When you know yourself as a soul and not just this individual little self needing to project and protect and defend and get love and get the right things and make sure you make the right decisions. When you find yourself as a strong and unique and eternal soul, you start to look across the world and you start to see other souls. You don't see just the individual differences. You start to see the shared light of love that is moving through each individuation. And even if they're acting ugly and hurtful, you set your boundaries. You take care of yourself. Emotionally, physically, you take care of yourself. But never forget that their veiling is just really dense. They are very lost. They have no connection to their own divinity, but it doesn't mean their divinity isn't there. We would stop so much warring and separation and division if we could see that we have a lot of things to work out in this world. But when we stop seeing the divinity in others, we go to war. Whether it be on a national scale or just between two people in a relationship. When we stop seeing the divinity in ourselves and in others, and we see only separation, and we don't see the sameness, the unity of consciousness, of love that we share, then it's easier to hurt what we consider to be others. So, opening our hearts. First, it's an individual journey. First, we learn to open our own hearts so that the light of love that's behind us, if you will, that wants to move through, we remove the veils of ego construct and conditioning and programming and stories and protection and smallness. When that veiling releases, relaxes, then the light, the truth of our being can start to shine through. And that's how heaven descends to earth, is all the open hearts. Allow the love, the light to descend, to be known here in this earthly plane. All right, my friends. Practice knowing yourself as love. Practice sitting in the stillness. Practice not naming everything, not narrating and placing meaning on everything. Practice being more interested in your stillness of being than with all of the experiences that we can get so lost in. Keep having experiences, But don't get so lost in them with your mind's stories and narrations and opinions and beliefs and judgments. Don't get so lost in the experience, in your own mind's narration and meaning making, that you forget that behind all of your opinions and beliefs and judgments, there is the pure light of loving awareness. That's who you really are. That's who we really are. That's all there is, really. Just moving through these human experiences that are very muddled with their own mind. Quiet the mind, open the heart, and know the light of love that we all share. All right, my friends, blessings. Satsang again. I'll announce it in the Oasis. Satsang not next Sunday, but I think the Sunday after that. Oh, and also for those who are anyone on YouTube, check the description. There's a donation link. I always forget to mention this, but if you care to donate to what it takes to put all this together and make this happen every 2 weeks, if you want to share and support, there's a donation link, and you can click on that, and any donation is welcome. And know that that is there. And if you come again in 2 weeks, try to remind me at the beginning of the call to mention that, because I always forget. But yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful to get a little bit more support in living this life of devotion and dedication and care and love, and offering that with as much generosity as possible into the world for free. The donation is an option, it's an opportunity, but this is all offered in service to the awakening of our shared divinity. All right, my friends, blessings, much love, and I hope to see you in a few weeks. All right, take care.